Former President Donald Trump will be arraigned tomorrow in a D.C. courtroom after he was indicted for the third time in 4 months for his attempts to overturn the 2020 election.
The indictment unsealed yesterday charges Trump with 4 counts, including 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the United States. And the state of Michigan and Detroit is mentioned multiple times in the indictment.
Joining us today to break down these charges is Matthew Schneider, former U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan. Matthew, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me back.
So here we are again, third indictment in just a few months, and by all accounts, the most serious. Did anything in the special counsel's announcement or the charging documents yesterday surprise you?
Not necessarily, because a lot of what we are hearing from this indictment has already been talked about in the media, and we've seen this. We've kind of predicted that it would be a conspiracy involving trying to stop the election and trying to interact with Mike Pence in the electors in the states, and so a lot of that has been repeated. I think the important takeaway from this case is how you compare it to these other cases. Now, if you rank them, in my opinion, the Mar-a-Lago documents case is probably the strongest evidence and the easiest to show. This one is not quite as easy to show because there are some viable defenses. And then in last place is that New York case, which is even harder to show. But again, juries can do all kinds of things. We don't know. It just remains to be seen.
In the indictment, Trump claims that there was voter fraud in Detroit. We saw Michigan and Detroit mentioned throughout the indictment. How much of a role, how much of an impact does Michigan and Detroit play in this indictment?
There will be some witnesses from Michigan, as mentioned in the indictment, the Senate Majority Leader, the Speaker of the House. They spoke with the president about this, and they are actually likely to be called as witnesses if it's necessary to bring that evidence. Now, the fact about whether or not there's voter fraud in Detroit, this case also involves Pennsylvania, Nevada, all different locations. So Michigan is part of it, but it's one of several different states involved.
So Jack Smith did not specifically identify these co-conspirators. What do you make
Correct.
of that decision?
It's a good question, and I think if you were trying to bring a case like this quickly, you wouldn't name them, because if you name and indict all of these co-conspirators right now, they all have their rights to look at the evidence, and that would significantly slow down this case. It will be much faster without them involved.
What do prosecutors need to prove here?
The theory on this case is that President Trump was told the election is over and you have lost, and all of his top advisors are telling you that you've lost, it's over, and you should give up. And their theory is he knew that, and he chose to lie about the election results anyway, and they have to prove that he knowingly and willfully lied. Now, the defense to that is that other people outside of his top advisors were telling him, no, actually, this is quite contestable. And as we know, presidents from Lincoln to FDR to LBJ, they get outside advice as well. So it is a defense that the president could have said, I just didn't believe my top advisors. I didn't believe Attorney General Barr. I relied on these other people instead, and that would be his defense in this case.
What impact, if any, do you think the election, the campaign trail, he is the leading Republican candidate, he is the presumptive nominee, he will be. What impact will that have on this case and the others?
I don't believe it'll have an ultimate impact because despite what's being said, it's going to be extremely difficult to try this case before Election Day. So that might have an impact in the minds of the voters. But whether or not you're actually going to see this happen before Election Day, I think it's unlikely. It's possible. It's just very unlikely.
Well, forecasting here, let's say Trump, as it appears, he's going to win the GOP nomination, and let's say he were to be reelected president of the United States, to have all this going on, all this commotion, just how bad would this be for the country?
It'd be devastating. This is the most significant criminal case ever brought in the history of the United States. It would be a complete distraction from what the president's trying to do if he's reelected. Now, so this is upsetting to us as Americans, people who live in the United States. But look who's looking at this. I'm certain that Communist Party leaders in China are looking at this with great delight. If they decide that this is the time to take a move toward Taiwan, it's the perfect time for them when Americans are distracted. So it has much bigger ramifications than just in domestic policy.
For this case alone, the former president is potentially facing decades in prison. Is that a realistic possibility? Do you see that ever happening?
Not necessarily, because even though the statutory allowance under the law is decades, that never happens. It could be a few years, but it wouldn't be 100 years.
Okay.
Well, Matthew Schneider, former U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.